Radicals, it has now become clear, radicals ruin everything. And I have this theory. I can't prove this because, causation is hard to prove. You never know whether it's causation or correlation. I have a theory that radicals actually show up after real change occurs and attach themselves to their change to win heroism without taking any risks. So I'm not talking about activists. They're genuine activists. You get a guy like Martin Luther King's an activist. He brings, he gets rid of the inertia to change. People don't like to change, and he makes sure people see how bad it is for people. And he does marches, and they're peaceful. And the reaction of the police, the brutality that's unleashed on him, awakens the conscience, and people says, hey, we got to stop this. Then you get, good laws, civil rights laws, and then things start to go wrong. Do you know that during the time of Jim Crow, some of the worst bigotry in this country, the Jim Crow South, the fate of black people, the state of black Americans got better. Their employment got more employment. Their economy, the difference between blacks and whites narrowed in the economy. Their marriages were holding together and their families were holding together. Crime was descending. There were more of them moving into the middle class. But then the radicals come along. And the radicals just are putting on a show. And they have to keep making things worse. They have to keep pretending things are bad so they can be heroic. Since the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson, all the good trends in the communities of black Americans have reversed. Marriage has fallen apart. Their illegitimacy rate is now worse than it was during slavery days. It's between 60 and 70%. Their economy has gotten worse until Donald Trump started actually making things better for them. And the radicals just make everything worse. And so you see things that are legitimate problems where right and left could actually sit down together and say, hey, this is a problem. This is something. I was watching over the weekend, or maybe it was just before the weekend, Harvey Weinstein turned himself in. And he's accused of rape, among other things. And look, I wasn't there. I can't convict the guy, but everything I know about him is sort of makes me feel like he should be put away. And he was always a bad guy. I know people who worked for him. He was a bad guy. And something like more than 80 women have come out and accused him of everything from groping to actual rape. And so he goes in, and first of all, the New York District Attorney scotched an attempt to arrest him before for molesting, for groping women. So and NBC did everything they could to smother this story by Ronan Farrow. And, so the left was really working hard to cover this up. But now he's in court, and he goes in, and his lawyer is outside the courtroom, and he makes this kind of hilarious, I shouldn't say it's hilarious, but he blames the whole thing on the Me Too movement. And he makes this comment.
My job is not to defend behavior. My job is to defend something that is criminal behavior, bad behavior. Mr. Weinstein did not invent the casting couch in Hollywood, and to the extent that there is bad behavior in that industry, that is not what this is about. Bad behavior is not on trial in this case. It's only if you intentionally committed a criminal act, and Mr. Weinstein vigorously denies that.
So he's conflating the bad behavior of Hollywood, the casting couch, with rape, right? He's conflating that, hoping that it'll all get kind of meshed together. But the other people who are doing that are the Me Too people. The fact that the radical feminists have taken radicalism, it ruins everything. The fact that the radicals have taken over the Me Too movement and made everything that men do seem toxic, and it's all men's fault and men. It trivializes the fact that people were actually raped by this guy, if indeed they were. Let's say they were allegedly raped by this guy. That is not a trivial thing. And they come after Morgan Freeman, and it really bugs me. Maybe he did some stuff that was creepy. They had this one thing that they're putting out saying Morgan Freeman makes creepy comments. And I was asking Jess, my friend and makeup lady, are these comments creepy? They had this little thing where he's talking to an Entertainment Tonight reporter, and she's very beautiful, and and he's 80, right? Morgan Freeman's like 80 years old. So here's the comment that he made.
Thank goodness. You married?
No.
Fool around with older guys? Just asking.
So he's flirting with the guy. He's 80 years old. He's flirting with you. You cut him some slack, right, Jess? I just said this is a little creepy, but you cut him some slack. He's an old guy, wants to still feel alive. He doesn't want to be out of the game. And maybe he did some other things. Some of the other things he did, we got handsy. Obviously I disapprove. I think women should be able to go to work and not feel uncomfortable. But, this stuff, the thing about this is the left created the culture in which this takes place. This is the first thing. The left created the culture in which things took place. The radicals who told us that our sexuality needed to be free, we needed to be loose, it's just we should do anything. The people who told us that women and men were the same, that women should have the same kind of sexual freedom that men have. All these people, the radicals who attached themselves, because this is true of the feminist movement too. There was a point where women said, hey, we've got a lot of technology, we've got birth control, we can expand our influence and our field of operation. We don't all have to be housewives, we can get out in the world. That happened pretty quickly. I was there, and there were some people who griped about it, sure, this, and, they got headlines. But really, it happened pretty quickly that women moved into the workplace, and men were mentors to them, and men helped them out. And any woman who's successful and honest, you ask her, you'll find there are a lot of men who helped them out. But it's the radicals who then attached and started burning bras, started yelling at men for opening doors, started saying that it's all men is the problem. Let me show you the way Hollywood works openly, okay? Here's a cut from, I think it's like 2001. When did that picture, Beautiful Mind, come out? It was like around 2001, all right? Jennifer Connelly, who I think is one of certainly at this point was one of the most beautiful women who has ever worked in Hollywood. I mean, just a stunningly beautiful woman. She goes on to promote her film, and she's on with David Letterman, who we now know was abusing his aides, was sleeping with everyone around there, who created an atmosphere where you basically felt that you had to put out for David Letterman. Really creepy guy, now back on Netflix. No pain, no gain, because Letterman was always on the left. And Jennifer Connelly looks spectacular. She is wearing this very short skirt, and she's talking, and the audience is going nuts. And here's just a little exchange.
I'm getting a lot of claps here. What's happening?
Believe me.
Are they being cute to clap?
I don't know what's happening. Oh, man, I think it may have something to do with the dress. I just happened to see that. What was that? How... I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but you're 2002. It's only just over a week. How's it going so far?
It's fun. I love the movie, and so I'm really happy people are seeing it and seeming to enjoy it. Yeah. It's kind of strange for me because I've been making movies that not necessarily a lot of people have been seeing recently, so it's kind of different for me. I've been being kind of recognized more. And
is that good, or for an actress, do you like that?
It's okay, but it's kind of disconcerting because it keeps happening at the gym with me. Like, I'll be in the locker room, and the other day I was in the gym in the locker room, and I'm naked, and there's two women next to me, and one of them say...
Okay. So that's the culture in which all these guys are operating in, right? Now they're applauding for her being naked. She knows what she's doing too. This is a transactional thing. She's an extraordinarily beautiful woman. That's why she's in the movies. That's why we're watching her movies. She's a terrific actress, but her beauty, part of being an actor or an actress is how you look, right? You don't have there's an old Cook and Moore routine. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore used to do this routine where a one-legged man shows up auditioning for Tarzan, and the guy has to explain to him that he can't be Tarzan because he only has one leg, and Dudley Moore is hopping around on the stage going, what do you mean I can't be Tarzan? And part of being an actor, one of your tools as an actor is how you look. A guy like me who writes stories, who writes books, I can write about handsome, daring guys without having to look like a handsome, daring guy. Harrison Ford can't. He has to look that part of a handsome, daring guy. She is using one of her tools, which is her beauty, to excite the crowd, and the crowd is going back and forth. Meanwhile, we know that Letterman is actually a bad guy and mistreating women. All I'm saying is, in that atmosphere, this atmosphere that left created with their radical attacks on our sexual mores, in that atmosphere, guys like Morgan Freeman are just guys. They're just ordinary people. If we lived in the Victorian age, and we may yet, if we lived in the Victorian age, guys like Morgan Freeman would be a little bit more circumspect. They wouldn't be doing this. But I'm sorry, if you're going to drag that guy in and compare him to Harvey Weinstein, then all you've done, as far as I'm concerned, is trivialize Harvey Weinstein, who actually may have done something really bad. The reason I bring this up is I bring it up for political reasons. It's because I feel that the Democrats are now radicals. They are radicals. They're radically anti-American. They're radically anti-social norms. They're radically anti our military. They're radically anti-everything that we believe in. And even though they have plenty of things that they can pick on Trump about, he's a big mouth, he can be rude, he says things sometimes, he's very, what's the word, imprecise, I guess would be the word to use. He doesn't always hew strictly to the truth. I don't think that's why they attack him so viciously. I think they attack him because he is tapped in to the anti-radical vein of normal American life. He is, I was listening to his very beautiful Memorial Day speech. He sent out a tweet saying, isn't it wonderful on Memorial Day that our soldiers, the soldiers can basically say, well, look what we've defended, the economy's doing so well, we're moving toward peace in Korea. And everybody said, well, he made Memorial Day about him, Okay, fair enough. But so did Obama, and they never picked on him. But his speech was quite beautiful. And let's just listen to a little bit. I won't play all of it because I understand these are, sentimental. I don't want to sit here and burst into tears and make a fool of myself. But play cut number 10.
They fought and bled and died so that America would forever remain safe and strong and free. Each of the markers on that field, each of the names engraved in stone, teach us what it means to be loyal and faithful and proud and brave and righteous and true. That is why we come to this most sacred place. That is why we guard these grounds with absolute devotion. That is why we always will remember. Because here, on this soil, on these grounds, beneath those fields, lies the true source of American greatness, of American glory, and of American freedom.
Really good speech, really well-written speech. Now, I feel that that Trump really does feel this way. He has a visceral love for the country. He has a visceral feeling for the country. I'm not saying he's a great guy. I'm not saying his business dealings were all in a row or whatever. I'm not saying he treated his wife well. Nothing. But I do think he has this visceral love of country. And, you remember the old poem, lives there a man with soul so dead who never to himself has said, this is my own, my native land. There's something that we all feel, this visceral feeling. The left has left that behind. And if you don't believe me, see, they will make this speech on Memorial Day, but that's the rest of the year. All they do is attack this country. Remember when the War on Terror was on? Remember every movie. There was one movie after another. In the Valley of Elah, Lions for Lions. In the Valley of Elah, the guys were going to Iraq, and it was driving them crazy, and they became serial killers. Lions for Lambs, they were foolish people. The military were foolish guys whose patriotism was being abused by evil Republicans played by Tom Cruise. Redaction, military were rapists. They were raping Iraqi women. Rendition, our spies were abducting innocent Muslims and torturing them, sending them off for torture. That was rendition. They made at least a dozen. Green Zone was another, Matt Damon, where we found out that the whole weapons of mass destruction thing was a scam. They did this again and again and again, and then they had the incredible gall to start that thing, we've got your six. If you come home, because they can deal with the military as victims. You come home and you have PTSD, we've got your six. Well, screw you, when you were making vehicles of propaganda while our guys, of anti-American propaganda while our guys were in the field, and they didn't realize why these movies kept bombing. And when Clint Eastwood made American Sniper and it was this huge hit, suddenly, we didn't realize that people wanted to see war movies where the Americans were the heroes. That really is radical. It is radical not to love your country, even on just a visceral level, just an organic way. And so they keep getting, the same thing is true with immigration. Listen to the president making a perfectly rational case about illegal immigration.
We all agree on the need to better secure the border and to punish employers who choose to hire illegal immigrants. We are a generous and welcoming people here in the United States, but those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law. And they are showing disregard for those who are following the law. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country.
Okay, not this president, not making it perfectly rational. Senator, the president, last president, when he was a senator and still trying to be an American and still trying to sound like an American. And now their idea is basically, let everybody in. And that's why they get maneuvered into doing things like supporting MS-13. The New York Times is lying about this. They had a fact check. They said, New York Times fact checker Linda Qiu, I don't know how to pronounce it. She put out this thing that says it's false. Democrats have neither cheered Mr. Trump's withdrawal from a summit with the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, nor have they ever defended the violent gang MS-13. But they have. We played Nancy Pelosi talking about how wonderful they had the spark of divinity in them. But over the weekend, or right before the weekend, in my neighborhood, West Hollywood, they gave Stormy Daniels the key to the city. Now, part of this is gay stuff. West Hollywood is just it's like a gay ghetto almost. But this guy, Flecka Talks, he does YouTube stuff. He goes in and he interviews people, and he asks them about their feelings about hearing MS-13 called animals.
Did you hear him call MS-13 animals?
Yes, I did.
What did you think about that?
I think he's a pig.
An animal. I mean, you smell your own, I guess.
Maybe not all people in that group are animals?
No, they're not animals at all. They're human beings just like all of us. I think he's a pig. He's just using that as an excuse to, justify his being such a racist.
And then this week, Trump made the comment about MS-13 being animals. Did you hear about that?
I did.
What do you think about that?
I think he's criticizing his own American people.
What can you say about this guy? He's the animal.
Would you agree that not all MS-13 members are animals?
Absolutely.
Cool. And then it kind of, exactly. It's just like a negative, always negative in the news, always negative in the news.
The guys that are running around gangbanging, killing people, they're animals. But the rest of the gang, it's a big gang.
It's a big gang. I love it. The rest of them are bringing toys for tots, and they're running, they're running book drives. And it's just, what about the secretary? What about the secretaries who are just, doing the writing the letters for the guys who are out killing people? They're not animals. It's amazing. It is amazing. Radicals ruin everything, including themselves. They ruin themselves by making them take on these opinions. Speaking of things, I got to talk about this a little bit. Speaking of things the New York Times lies about, all right? Everything Trump does in North Korea is wrong. It just somehow weirdly keeps working out for the best, so who knows what he's up to, it's like, so the press is always picking on him. And now the summit, which was off, is now on again. And in an off-the-cuff remark, Donald Trump says, hey, maybe we'll even hit our deadline, which I guess was June 12th. We have just a little cut of him outside the White House talking to people. Do we have that?
We'll see what happens. It could even be the 12th. We're talking to them now. They very much want to do it. We'd like to do it. We're going to see what happens.
We'll see what happens. We may still hit the deadline. So the New York Times, Mark Landler and David E. Sanger, in the New York Times, a former newspaper, write this long piece about how he's not even talking to his aides anymore. He's not even talking to the people who are supposed to advise him. And he says, as with so many issues involving this president, the views of his aides often have little effect on what he actually says, as if he's supposed to echo his aides. That's the first thing. He says, on Thursday, for example, a senior White House official told reporters that even if the meeting were reinstated, holding it on June 12th would be impossible, given the lack of time and the amount of planning needed. So Trump answers back. And he says the failing New York Times, you should pick up my thing, a former newspaper. Failing New York Times quotes a senior White House official who doesn't exist as saying even if the meeting were reinstated, holding it on June 12th would be impossible given the lack of time and the amount of planning needed. Wrong again, use real people, not phony sources. All right, so he says the guy who said that it's impossible doesn't exist. There is no aide who says that it's impossible to do this. All right, so Yashar Ali, who writes for New York Magazine, gets the audio of this aide, this official, and he plays it like this aha moment, proving that this guy exists. So here's the audio of this official.
The main point, I suppose, is that the ball is in North Korea's court right now, and there's really not a lot of time. We've lost quite a bit of time that we would need in order to, there's been an enormous amount of preparation that's gone on over the past few months. In the White House and state and with other agencies and so forth, but there's a certain amount of actual dialogue that needs to take place at the working level with your counterparts to ensure that the agenda is clear in the minds of those two leaders when they sit down to actually meet and talk and negotiate and hopefully make a deal. And June 12th is in 10 minutes, and it's going to be, But the president has said that he has someday that he looks forward to.
So he says it's tough. It's going to be tough. Tough to do. He doesn't say it's impossible. He never says it's impossible. Somebody pointed out, climbing Everest is tough, but you can do it. Impossible is impossible. So there is no White House aide who said this is impossible. Donald Trump is correct. The guy doesn't exist who did this, right? So now Maggie Haberman, a Clinton operative who has now been hired by the New York Times to cover the White House because she is a Democrat operative, as came out in some of the leaked emails from the Clinton campaign. She puts out a tweet. Imagine being the White House background briefer who led this briefing, who now has his boss, the president of the U.S., saying she doesn't exist. They're holding to their lie. They're holding to their lie. And they say, here's Alex Malin. I guess he's from ABC. He says, real Donald Trump is slamming the New York Times for citing a senior White House official who doesn't exist, but the portion of the article he appears to be referring to directly cites comments made at a background briefing, but we just heard it. He didn't say it. The guy who said that doesn't exist. The New York Times could have said, we got this story wrong. We mischaracterized his comments. He did say something, but he didn't say impossible. But their radicalism, their hatred for this president, and I'm telling you, they do not hate him for the reasons he can be hateful. They hate him because they're radicals and he represents an America they hate, which is America. These guys ruin everything.